Hi, and welcome to Harvest Bible Chapel, Kuala Lumpur Online. We hope that the following message will be a blessing to you as you seek to walk with the Lord in spirit and in truth. For more information about our church, please visit www.harvestkl.org or click the link in the description below.
Welcome and good morning to you again. My name is Peter and I am one of the pastors here. This morning we're going to be in the book of 2 Kings, chapter 5. And so if you have your Bibles, go ahead and make your way there. That's where we're at in our series through the Bible this year. 2 Kings 5 is a story about a guy named Naaman who was not an Israelite. In fact, he was from the nation of Syria. He was a great commander for the nation of Syria. And he comes into the picture because the kings of Israel and Judah are following after other gods with very few exceptions. And while they're in the promised land, in a land that is supposed to be characterized by peace and rest, they are at war amongst themselves and with the surrounding nations. And so this is where we jump in 2 Kings chapter 5. I'll also have it on the screen here behind me. Starting in verse 1, it says, Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and in high favor because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. Now, just take a quick note here. We're going to go deep really quickly. Take a quick note here that God is using an enemy of Israel to do his will. I think oftentimes we like to oversimplify God and put God in a box. At least according to our minds, we think we know all the ways of God, that there are ways that he should work and that surely he doesn't work. When in fact, God is in control of all things. How can he allow things like using a non-believer or suffering in our lives to do his will? But God is in control of all things. The scriptures say that he holds the hearts of kings, the hearts of the leaders of nations and empires of the world in his hands, and he directs them according to his ultimate purpose and his will. And that should humble us, and it should make us a lot less presumptuous. It should make us maybe assume not as quickly about the purposes of God, about who he is using and what he is doing in the world. But at the same time, it should give us a lot of confidence as we live in this chaotic and broken world because we know that a good God is in control. There's a whole sermon to be preached there, but let's continue. We're still in verse 1. He was a mighty man of valor, this is Naaman, but he was a leper. Now the Syrians on one of their raids had carried off a little girl from the land of Israel, and she worked in the service of Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "Would that my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria. He would cure him of his leprosy." And so Naaman went and told his Lord. Thus and so spoke the girl from the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, "Go now, and I will send a letter to the king today." Right? So today, having leprosy is not that big a deal. It's curable, it's treatable, it's easy to diagnose and take care of. But in those days, they didn't have the same medical advancements. And so if you had leprosy, you were just going to suffer and die. There was no hope for you. Continuing on. So he went, Naaman, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. Now, I think we're all in agreement. We can understand why he would take the gold and silver. That's worth a lot of money. But why is he taking 10 changes of clothes? Right? When I read that, it reminded me of my childhood. My parents, every Christmas, would say, "Peter, what do you want for Christmas?" And I was like, "I only want one thing. I want money." They're like, "No, tell me, we'll buy you something with that money." I was like, "No, I just want money, like the paper, and then I'll get what I want." And then sure enough, for Christmas, you know what I'd get for every year? They'd give me clothes. And I'm like, great. I don't even like this sweater. It's so ugly. It's an ugly Christmas sweater. All I wanted was money. But this is not what's going on here. These 10 changes of clothes, these outfits were made of the finest materials. They're super expensive. It would be like having a designer outfit from Louis Vuitton or Gucci. Right? I had to Google that. Did you know a pair of pants from Louis Vuitton is like 10,000 ringgit? That's crazy. So you multiply that in pants and shirt 10 outfits, that's worth a lot of money. Okay, that's what's happening here. Verse 6, and he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, when this letter reaches you, know that I have sent to you Naaman my servant, that you may cure him of his leprosy. And when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, am I God to kill and make alive, that this man sends word to me to cure a man of leprosy? Only consider and see how he is seeking a quarrel with me. So the king of Israel is like, what does he want me to do about this leprosy? Am I God? I can't heal him. Like, if you came to me with a rash, I'd be like, I could pray for you, but that's kind of out of my control, right? And so the king is like, this has to be a setup. Naaman has raided our lands before. This is surely what's going on. Verse 8, but when Elisha, okay, not to be confused with Elijah from 1 Kings 18, Elisha is the successor to Elijah. And if you get the order mixed up, it's just in alphabetical order. But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent to the king saying, why have you torn your clothes? Let him come now to me that he may know that there is a prophet in Israel. I was like, why'd you ruin your outfit? Just send him to me. Now note here that Elijah is not so much concerned about healing Naaman's leprosy as he is that Naaman understands that the one true God of all the earth is in Israel. Okay, but there is a prophet who serves that God in Israel. So verse 9, so Naaman came with his horses and chariots and stood at the door of Elisha's house, which would have seemed like an incredible show of force representing his wealth and his power and his importance. Verse 10, and Elijah sent a messenger to him saying, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean. But Naaman was angry and went away, saying, behold, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call upon the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and cure the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could not I not have just washed in them and be clean? So he turned away and went away in a rage. Now, first of all, you kind of feel bad for Naaman. He's already had to swallow up his pride to go to a nation that he has conquered and ask them for help. But then when he finally gets there to Elisha's house, 2 things happen. First, Elijah, did you notice, doesn't even have the courtesy to come out and meet Naaman. He stays in his house. Doesn't he know who Naaman is and what Naaman could do to him? Maybe he was in the middle of watching a good football match on TV, and instead of going out, he sends a messenger. And that poor messenger, he's like, I'm really sorry, my master is busy watching this football match. He sent me out here to give you this message. Please don't hurt me, I'm just the messenger. So Naaman thinks that he is somebody special, but Elisha treats him like a nobody. And my guess is if Elijah had just healed Naaman the way that he wanted to, then that whole occurrence would have just been transactional. Here's what I mean. Elijah would have come out and he would have said, hey, what's up, Naaman? He would have waved his hand, be cured of your leprosy. Naaman would have said, I appreciate you. Here are some gifts. Get back to your football match. I'll be going on my way. And he would have left essentially the same person as he came. And secondly, Naaman is offended by the instructions that Elijah gives him because of the waters of the Jordan are dirty. They're not nearly as nice as what he has back home. So he doesn't think that it's up to his standards. Now, medically speaking, I kind of understand where Naaman is coming from. If I had open sores and I had leprosy and a rash and everything else going on, I don't know that I would want to get into some dirty water, right? Imagine if I told you, if you want to be healed of whatever is going on, you know the original site where Kale was founded, where those 2 streams kind of come together? And I told you, you have to go in those waters to be healed. You'd go there and you're like, that's kind of dirty, right? The water is not great. It's not like I told you to go to one of the exotic islands of Malaysia where the water is crystal clear and blue. No, the water was dirty. Verse 13, but his servants came near to him and said, my father, it is great. It is a great word that the prophet has spoken to you. Will you not do it? Has he actually said to you, wash and be clean? So he went down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan according to the word of the man of God, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. So Naaman's servants, being much more calm, are trying to talk sense into Naaman, just to try and see what happens. They're like, Naaman, if this prophet's instructions to you were to swim across the ocean or to climb Mount Everest or to jump out of a plane, wouldn't you try anything? Wouldn't you go to any lengths to get this healing? What do you have to lose by following his instructions? Nothing, except maybe your pride if it doesn't work. And so Naaman gets in the water, in and out 7 times. And you've got to wonder, like, what was Naaman thinking? It wasn't just go in and come out. He had to go in the first time and get out, and the second time and get out, the 5th time and the 6th time, and still nothing is happening. And Naaman's probably like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe I'm doing this. If this doesn't work, I'm going to go back and I'm going to kill Elisha for making me do this, right? But then he gets in the 7th time and he comes out and he's healed. And he's got skin as soft as a baby's bottom. Verse 15, then he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and he came and stood before him, and he said, behold, I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. So accept now a present from your servant. But he said, this is Elijah, as the Lord lives before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. Now this was probably to make it clear that the salvation, the deliverance of God cannot be bought with money. Verse 17, then Naaman said, if not, please let there be given to your servant 2 mule loads of earth, for from now on your servant will not offer burnt offerings or sacrifice to any god but the Lord. In this matter, may the Lord pardon your servant when my master goes into the house of Rimmon to worship there, leaning on my arm, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon. When I bow myself in the house of Rimmon, the Lord pardon your servant in this matter. And he said to him, go in peace. So here you have Naaman, who came looking for healing for his leprosy, but he unexpectedly found a greater spiritual healing. You see, Naaman's leprosy was an outward sign of his inward sickness, his sin, which was far more devastating. But like leprosy, sin grows, and it numbs you, and it takes what is alive, and it deadens it. It kills you. And only God is able to bring back to life what was once dead. And so Naaman realizes that this healing from leprosy was nothing compared to the life and salvation that he found in God. And so the first words out of Naaman's mouth to Elijah are not, look, my leprosy's gone. Check it out. You've got to touch it. This is so soft, just at least once. No, he doesn't say any of that. Rather, he says, behold, I know that there is no God in all the earth but Israel. My life has been changed. Now I know that there is only one God who deserves all of my worship. And so when I go back home, I actually want to take some of this dirt with me to remind me about Israel. And if I need 2 mule loads, because if it starts raining and I lose some dirt, I need a little bit more. And then actually, I'm a servant to my master. And so when I have to serve my master, and if I got to go in this temple of this other God, I know he's not the one true God. Forgive me when I have to do that because I'm serving him. Now, Naaman doesn't realize that he has to take that dirt with him, and he's just making baby steps about and figuring out what it means to truly follow God, but he's excited because he is a new man. And that is the incredible, one of my favorite stories in the Bible, incredible stories about Naaman. Now, for the rest of our time, I want us to take a deeper look at what is going on in the backdrop of this story. One of our favorite topics that we love to talk about, suffering. We're going to get heavy really quick. Now let me ask you a question. Who here, by show of hands, you raise your hands, who here likes to suffer? Anybody? Nobody likes to suffer? Okay. Let me ask you another question. Who here, if you're a follower of Jesus, genuinely want to know and love God more deeply? Anybody? Okay, awesome. That's really exciting. Now I have some good news and bad news for you. When we look at the suffering of Naaman, what we see is that God uses our suffering for our own good. our own good as he brings us to himself. Now, I'm with you. I wish there was another more pleasant, more comfortable way that doesn't include hardship. But in many cases, there's not. And the hard truth is that there is a deep knowledge and love for God that can only be accessed through suffering. Okay, let's go back to Naaman. Let's take his example. Was Naaman's leprosy a gift or a curse? Was Naaman's leprosy a gift or a curse? Well, on one hand, no one wants leprosy, right? It's a horrible disease. Your skin becomes disfigured with white and red sores, and your nerves are damaged, and so they become numb. I was going to show a picture of what leprosy looked like, but it was too gross, right? So not only do you have to deal with the physical issues of having leprosy, there was also some social stigma about, man, that guy has leprosy. And back in the day, they thought it was contagious. It's kind of like, at least kids in America, when they're young, they have this game that they play. They tag each other and they say, "You've got cooties." No one knows what cooties is. It's just a thing. They tag each other. That's what they thought leprosy was like. So was it a gift or a curse? Well, God would end up using Naaman's suffering, his leprosy, and his search for a cure for Naaman's own good, to bring Naaman to the end of himself and back to him. But the crazy thing is, Naaman's pride almost cost him his own healing. His pride almost cost him his own healing. And if it were not for his servants, he would have left unchanged, unhealed from his leprosy, not knowing who the one true God is, and he would have left and went back home. Which, by the way, that is a great reason for all of us to live in biblical community with brothers and sisters. Because when we're going through hardship, we are the least likely to see things clearly as they are. We need people who can see things more clearly, who are more emotionally calm and on the outside, who can point us, who can calm us down and say, "We need to just take a breath and let's see what God is doing and what he is up to." So if you're not in biblical community, after this service is over, there's a connect table right in the back, and you can get connected to one of our small groups before you leave today. Our pride is the number one hindrance to God's work in our lives. And not only that, our refusal to do things God's way, it doesn't make our situation any better, it makes it worse. And then we usually get angry at God, and we're like, "How could you let this happen? If you love me, fix this." Right? Why aren't you making things better? And that's exactly how Adam and Eve felt in Genesis 3 when they walked away from God. When they rejected God and said, "I don't want you to tell me what's good and what to do. I'm going to decide for myself." And look where that got them. Look where our sin has gotten us as you look at our world. Our pride, our sin has ruined us in the world that we live in, and it's not getting any better. So the question for you today is, what are you refusing to do his way? Where is your pride and living life on your own terms keeping you from God? Maybe you're here this morning and you are a single believer, meaning you're not married. You're desperate and you're craving for companionship and marriage, or it's your desire to be wanted and loved. And so you're considering, or maybe you're dating a non-believer. And maybe you're even talking about marriage. Listen, lonely, desperate, single people become lonely, desperate, married people. Marriage doesn't fix those issues. Marriage just amplifies them, because if you're a lonely, single person and you think someone else is going to solve it, you're going to be very disappointed. Listen, the Bible is very clear about this. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not good for you, and it is one of the most unwise decisions that you can make in your life. It is better for you to remain single. Now, let me just say, oftentimes, depending on what culture you come from, we can oftentimes look down on singleness. But that's not how singleness is presented in the Scriptures. Presented in the Scriptures, we see that singleness is just as much a gift from God as is marriage. It is not a lesser state of being than being married. Right? It is a season or a lifetime that you can dedicate your life fully to God. And that is an incredibly beautiful thing. Or maybe you think you can't have a good or fulfilling life unless you attain to a certain level of comfort or status. You always had a picture or dream of what you wanted your life to look like. What kind of car you wanted to drive, what kind of house or neighborhood that you wanted to live in, what kind of vacations and holidays you wanted to take, and where you wanted to travel in the world. And so you take your education and career, and that becomes the most important thing to you. And by your own free choice, you're willing to sacrifice being in community and coming to church and worshiping with the body so that you can put in a little extra work, a little extra study, so that you can get ahead of the competition. Maybe for others of you, it's money. And you're not generous towards God. You might give to Him your leftovers, what you can afford after you do everything else that you want to do, but it's not giving your first and best to God. Now, money in and of itself, money is not a bad thing. Having lots of money and enjoying good things is also not a bad thing. But the love of money and stinginess, those are bad things. And the love of money has a way of knitting our hearts, of enslaving our hearts to this passing world like nothing else. It gives us a false sense of security and control and comfort. All things that we are to find not in money or the things of this world, but that we're supposed to find in God. I remember a couple of years into our marriage, I had just finished seminary. My wife was working at that time. This is before she went to grad school. This is before we had any kids. And I remember after I graduated seminary, I was so proud of myself. And I still remember where I was when I went to Grace, my wife, and I told her, we are rich. We are good. I didn't even have a full-time job at that point. My wife was part-time. But for somehow God had given us enough money. It was 100,000 ringgit or something like that. And we were maybe 25. We were we are good. Nothing can touch us. We are set for life. And as soon as I said that, sure enough, a series of events happened in my life where we had to move. Both Grace and I became jobless. We encountered health issues. And we used all of that 100,000 ringgit. And I remember the day that I walked into the bank. It was called Wells Fargo. And I sat down with the person. And they're like, why are you here? I said, I need to close my savings account. They're trying to convince me to keep the account open. I'm like, it says 0.00. I don't need this savings account. I need to close it. And I remember walking out those doors of that bank, of that Wells Fargo, and thinking, I was a fool to have trusted in money. To think that money could solve all of my issues. Because I thought my money, this amount of money in this savings account, was going to be my freedom. It was my security. It was my ability to do whatever I wanted. And then after that, I realized money comes and goes. God gives it and He takes it away. And so now money to me is not something that I find my security or identity in, but I recognize I'm just a steward of what God has temporarily put me over to manage. And I want to leverage all of that. And so I want to give generously to the church and its mission. Lastly, maybe you just have a fear of missing out. There's so many things that you want to do in life. You want to have fun. You want to experience good things. And so you're willing to follow God a little bit. Give Him 5% or 10% over here. God, you can do whatever you want in this spot, but the rest of it, I want full control. I want to live how I want to live. But if God is not God, if He is not Lord over all of your life, then He is not your Lord at all. He's not your Lord at all. And if we are going to be afraid of missing out on anything, it should be that by not following God faithfully, that we're going to miss out on what God has for us in our lives. The goodness and the joy that it is to know and live fully for Him. And so as your pastor, if you're living in this way where you're making compromises because of your pride and you're not living fully for Him, I hope you suffer. That sounded a little bit harsh. Let me take that back. I hope you don't have to suffer, but that you would live fully for God. But if you're going to be stubborn, and we're going to be stubborn, because I do this all the time too, then I want God to put something in my life to wake me up, to put an end to myself and living for myself so that I can turn back to Him. It's not because I wished ill upon you. I don't want anything bad to happen to you, but I do desire that we would be a people who are fully in love with God. We're all in with Him. Now, in a room this size, I know that there are some of you, there might be many of you, who are going through some really hard things right now. And this is not to make light of the hardships that you are going through, but it may be that God is using your suffering, whether it's with your health or your relationship or finances, to get your attention, to bring you to the end of yourself so that you will pick up your eyes and you will look to Him. You're so desperate beyond what you can do out of your own strength that you have nowhere else to turn but to God Himself. And we can have a comfort in that. As hard as our pain may be, as bad as it may seem, if our deepest pains, and God will use our suffering for our good to bring us to Himself, that we can say, God, I trust You. You're good. You're in control of all things. And I know that somehow You are doing something in my life. I may not be able to see it, but attaining You, getting You is more valuable than anything in this world. And so I want to trust You because I understand that Jesus is a high priest for me who sympathizes with me. He was a man of sorrows. He was stricken with grief. Because He sympathizes with me and He understands me, I can trust You. And so don't let your pride and what you think you know or what you think you deserve deceive you into thinking that if you can't see what God is doing, then He must not be up to anything good, that He must not know what He's doing. That is an incredibly arrogant way to view yourself, that all truth and God's plans are subject to your understanding and your approval. That's just foolishness. Our complete and immediate obedience to God should be based solely on the fact that He is God and we're not. And like Naaman ultimately did, we have to humble ourselves before God, to have the faith to do what He says. Humility and faith are the only ways to God. In our lifetimes, God usually doesn't ask us to do big, miraculous things for Him. Like He's never asked me to split open the Red Sea and so that people can get through. But He does ask us, like Naaman, to take small steps of obedience, to have faith in Him and to trust Him to do what He says. And over a lifetime, all those small steps add up into an incredible life of walking with God. Do you want to know what God's will for you is, what He desires for you? It's for you to look like Jesus and to know Him and to love Him more. That is His desire for you because He is a good Father. And that means sometimes He is going to use suffering for our good to bring Him to Himself. And the question just is, will we lay down our pride? Will we humble ourselves and have the faith in Him to do what He says? Now let's look at suffering through the eyes of the little girl who we kind of just glanced over. God uses our suffering for the good of others. So God uses suffering for our good to bring us to Himself. And then God will use our suffering for the good of others to bring them to Himself. So who was this little girl? We don't know her name. We don't really know much about her other than she was a slave girl who was kidnapped from her homeland, from Israel, and she was possibly a child to murdered parents. She was there because of no wrong that she had done, and she had every right to look at Naaman and say, that's what you get. You deserve that leprosy, and I hope you suffer and die a miserable death. But that's not what she does. She looks at Naaman, she has forgiven him, and says, I want you to be well. And she's saying this of her kidnapper because her faith in God was greater than her circumstances and what she could see. So a great man, Naaman, was saved by this little girl so that he could have faith in the one true God like she did. The little girl's suffering brought God and life to another person. Is that a category that we have for suffering? And are we okay with that? That God would ordain our suffering so others might know Him. Because that's definitely within His ability and His right as God. It's hard, but it's true. And sometimes I think we as believers, we get stuck on our healing and our deliverance as if those are the only ways that God can move and work in our situation. We have like me vision. We have tunnel vision on ourselves when we can only see and think about ourselves, right? So we think that the the only thing that God could be up to is what is going on in my life, the God of the universe, with no regard to how it relates to the billions of other people in the world. Of course, that's not to say that we shouldn't ask for God to heal and deliver. We absolutely should, with incredible boldness and with faith. At the same time, if He doesn't answer the way that we want, we can have a peace in knowing that God is loving, He's wiser than we are, and we can be okay with the fact that He may be doing something bigger than what's going on in my life. Maybe for some of you, it's a health issue. And you've been praying for healing, but for whatever reason, God is not answering that prayer the way that you want. But in the way that you have hope and peace in the fact that one day we're all going to have resurrection bodies that are imperishable. Your back is never going to hurt again. Your ankle's never going to hurt again. You'll never have a headache again. Because of that hope that we have in Jesus, the way that we suffer, it can be a testimony to those around us. Maybe you're married to an unbelieving spouse, or you have wayward children who are not walking with God. And life is hard because with some of the people that you love the most, you can't agree on the most important things about how are you going to raise your kids and spend your money and spend your time. But it may be through your long suffering and your graciousness that God may move and lead them to Christ. That's what the Bible says. Maybe you have a terrible boss, and they're taking advantage of you. They're running you ragged. They're making your life horrible, and you're trying to honor God with your life and steward your time well and to serve Him. But because of their idol of success and money, they're just making you work all the time. And in that scenario, you can just say, what I do for work, I don't do unto men. I do unto God, so I can do it with excellence. And I can trust that God is doing something with this. Maybe for some of you, it's persecution from your family or from a community because of what you believe. You get treated differently, unfairly, maybe even physically harmed. In one of the most shocking verses in the Bible for me, in the book of Acts, if you're following along in the Bible reading plan, we just read through this, the apostles are called before the religious leaders, and they're beaten and released. And do you know what they say after they get released? Praise God. Praise God that we were counted worthy to suffer for the name of Jesus. How incredible is that? And through their unwavering testimony, even in the midst of persecution, many people after them became believers. Just a couple of months ago, last month, I was in the U.S. and I was talking with one of our partner churches. They had been connected to this guy who was a part of, and they had met with him in person. They got connected with him because he had become a believer through visions and dreams of Jesus in this closed country. So they went over here and met with him, and he was telling them about how God radically changed his life and how he was a part of this organization that was about violence. And so he went and told his brother, who was a leader of this group, and his brother, he said, took the gun and pointed it right at his head. And he didn't flinch, is the way that he tells the story. He didn't flinch because he knew that if his brother were to take his life, he knew exactly where he was going. And because of that, his brother saw that and said, why are you not afraid to die? And through that, his brother, who was the leader of this group, becomes a believer, and the men under their leadership becomes believers. How incredible is that? Now, I know that God worked in that, but I also know that it could have easily gone the other way, and God would have still been glorified by the way that he died for the name of Jesus and his beliefs. Now, it's important for us to remember, right, that our enemy is not against flesh and blood. Our enemy is not other people. Our enemy is spiritual. Our enemy is not people who don't follow Jesus or believe in something else. Those people are people who are made in the image of God, for whom Jesus shed his blood and died on the cross, just as much as he did for you and me. And our job, like the little girl to Naaman, is to point them to Jesus, to tell them about the hope and the life that can only be found in him, even if they are the ones causing our suffering. It's why our call as followers of Jesus is to die to ourselves, to pick up our cross, and to follow him. So that's suffering, according to 2 Kings 5. God uses our suffering for our own good, that we might be brought to Him, and He uses our suffering for the good of others, that others might be brought to Him. And God is glorified both when His people are healed, so that we can praise Him for the healing, and He's glorified just as much when His people suffer and die well. That's how our sovereign and good God works. Just look at Jesus. Like the little girl, He suffered for no fault of His own. Jesus already had a perfect relationship with the Father. There was nothing that He was lacking. But knowing that it was the only way, He willingly took Himself. He took death upon Himself. The death that we deserved because of our sin, so that we could be forgiven of our sin, so that we could be healed of our sin, so that we could receive all the goodness that Jesus deserved. And He did it with joy. He did it with joy because He knew that through His suffering and His death in our place, that God would bring healing to the nations, that God would bring all the nations back to Himself and receive the worship and the glory that He's due. So maybe you're here this morning, and this is the first time that you're hearing about Jesus, that you've ever heard of Him. Maybe you're in a situation like Naaman. There's something going in your life, and you need help. And that thing has brought you to this place because you don't know where else to go for help. And I have good news for you. And that good news is that Jesus loves you. And He wants to offer to you a healing and a salvation that is greater than what is going on in your life right now. See, we all have this stain, like Naaman had, this spot of leprosy. We all have this stain called sin. We can't hide it. We can't get rid of it. Because in our pride, we have rebelled against God. And the penalty of that rebellion is eternal death and separation from Him. And the only way for us to be washed clean of our sins, it's not by working harder, by trying more, by trying to become a better person. And it's not dependent on who you are, whether you're rich or poor, young or old, what ethnicity you are, what religion you were born into, what religion your family is. There is only one way to be washed clean of your sins, and that is to be washed by the blood of Jesus. And that may sound crazy to you. That may sound like foolishness, like it initially did to Naaman. But he had just enough faith to go into the waters, to humble himself, and to do what it took. And that's all you need this morning. You need the humility to die to yourself and the faith to do what God has called you to do. That's simply to receive Jesus, to receive all that He has done for you. He requires nothing else from you because He's already paid the cost. And when you do that, the Holy Spirit of God will well up within you. The Spirit of God will dwell with you and spring up as living waters of healing for your soul. And He cares for the suffering that you're going through. He may bring healing to that. But more importantly, He'll give you eternal life with Him. So the question is, will you receive it? Will you humble yourself and receive the good gift of Jesus Christ and what He's done for you?